Hey folks, I'm Spencer, and on today's episode of Cult Mania we're looking at the absolute insanity that is Ryuhei Kitamura's Versus. Versus follows an escaped prisoner played by Tak Sakaguchi. He arrives on the edge of a forest expecting to be picked up by a group of Yakuza, but that meeting goes absolutely tits up. One of the Yakuza ends up dead, although he doesn't end up dead for very long because he comes back as a zombie. You see, this forest is home to the 444th portal to the underworld. There are 666 of them in total, and I wonder why they picked that number. Anyway, basically, anything that dies here comes back. There are ways to get to the underworld here, and this is just an excuse for absolute insanity to take place. Honestly, there is some absolutely bananas stuff going on in this film. I mean, you have zombies that can shoot at people, you have a lot of people shooting at people while they dual wield weapons, you have sword fights, you have everyone dressed in leather trench coats, you have a guy who says that he has the reflexes of 500 Mike Tysons or something like that. You have zombies that crawl around like insects and make funny noises. I mean, this is another one of those films where it feels like someone just made a suggestion while they were filming and everyone went, yes. It really is just a film of things that would be cool being cool. It really feels like a video game movie that isn't adapted from a video game. I was actually surprised because there is such a connection between a lot of the stuff that happens in this film and something like Devil May Cry. I was really surprised that whilst Versus came out before, they must have been being made at the same time. There must have just been some sort of Japanese zeitgeist around guns and swords and demons. And actually, the plot very much has a similar style to something like Metal Gear Solid in that the way characters speak and the fact that it just goes, this'll be cool, how can we vaguely tie it into the rest of it? And that does make sense because Kojima is actually an extra in this film. Fun little fact for you. Pretty much every character in this film is ludicrous and over the top. Sakaguchi is definitely the standout performer here. He manages to just pull off all of the dumb one-liners. Just his body language, he pulls it all off with such a sort of swagger and overly cocky nature. You just really feel he gets the film. And it's interesting that there are two sort of stories about why he was cast. One of which is that he was in a street fight and the director saw him and went, would you like to fight in movies rather than the streets? Which is badass. Or that they just thought he had a beautiful smile, which is really cute. And he is a very beautiful man, so I can understand that one as well. And he has lovely hair. Everyone has extreme hair in this film. I'm not trying to say that everyone else in the film doesn't give a good performance. I mean, it is mainly a competition of who can chew their way through more of the scenery. And you do get this sort of sense that everyone is just trying to over-swagger everyone else. But it really suits how the film is designed. Also, little side note, they didn't record any of the sound on location, so everyone is dubbed whether you watch it in Japanese or English. So if you like your action movies without subtitles, you're not really going to lose out too much by having it in English. I mean, but I like having it in Japanese because at least you've got the actual voices coming out of the real people, even if their lips are still going. I don't know, it kind of ties it in with all the sort of older martial arts movies that always did that. It just sort of gives it that connection. I think it's quite cool. The film is a ridiculously low budget affair. I mean, it pretty much entirely takes place just in some woods. It very much has the vibe of a group of friends going to make a film in the woods like most teenagers do. It just happens to be a feature length and really bloody awesome. And I think a large part of what makes it awesome is that despite its low budget, the camera work is very creative. I mean, they love orbiting a camera around people, especially if they're like pulling a sick pose, like they've got two guns and the camera just goes woo. But you know, it's very kinetic. There's a lot of throwing things around, but always keeping action very clear. It sort of reminds me of Evil Dead if Evil Dead was an absolutely crazy action film rather than a horror film. I mean, there are horror elements to this, but I mean, it's not scary. I will say a main criticism, because I feel like I ought to give one, is that if you see this in the theatrical cut, it's quite a bland film colour-wise. You are looking at a lot of green, a lot of brown and a lot of white, with some red thrown in from, well, you can tell where the red comes from. The gore in the film really does help boost up the sort of martial arts, gun fu action sequences of the film. I mean, the gore isn't particularly good, but it's the fun kind of not very realistic. It just throws so much at the screen, and it's often very creative. There's a fantastic bit where someone's punched through the head and their eyes are stuck on someone's fingers. That's awesome. It's that level, like, it's dumb, it doesn't look real, but it's cool. And it really helps. I mean, there is a lot of action in this film. Every 5 minutes, at least, there is a big fight scene that could go on for at least 5 minutes, if not longer. And that really helps keep the film entertaining for its 2 hours plus, depending on which edit you watch. You know, I kept thinking, I'm going to get bored re-watching this, and I didn't. It's just ace. Now, as I mentioned, the film was released in 2 different versions. You have the sort of theatrical standard cut, and then they went back, filmed some new scenes, and re-released that as the ultimate edit. For starters, the theatrical cut has been restored from a 35mm sort of cinema print. It is not the original negative, but this is to do with the convoluted way that the film was filmed on 6mm, then digitally uploaded, then all the editing was done digitally, and then these 35mm prints were created to actually show the film. And whilst I'd read that, and I've seen other films that have had this treatment and they don't look amazing, Versus looked so much better than I thought it would, because I remember thinking this looks a bit poo when I saw it on DVD. It really does look much better now. I was really, really pleasantly surprised by how good it looks. Then, you also get in this Arrow release the Ultimate Edit. Sort of. You see, when they did the Ultimate Edit, they replaced some of the music, they recolour graded the film, and they inserted both new scenes and replaced some of the old scenes with slightly different takes to try and get more to what they'd originally planned the film to look like. What you have here on the Arrow release is you have the new scenes and the new soundtrack and the reworked scenes inserted into the theatrical cut. Now, this is because, as far as I can tell, the Ultimate Edit only exists in standard definition format. Thus, you wouldn't be able, there's nothing you could do to upscale it. So, I think the compromise was, okay, we'll insert the new footage into the original version, which would be fairly jarring anyway, because the quality does randomly dip. You will always know, oh, this is an Ultimate Edit sequence, because it will suddenly look like ass. But also, it's colour graded really differently. So there's a bit where it goes from normal day and it suddenly goes really blue, and then it goes back to normal day. And there's a bit where it goes from normal day to going really, really orange, back to normal day. And this is fine. I think it's probably the best way of doing this Ultimate Edit because those scenes are jarring anyway, so the colour grading doesn't really matter. It is a shame that nothing more could be done with the Ultimate Edit because I do think adding that colour grading adds quite a lot of atmosphere to the film, which is there, but it adds way more. But yeah, what I would do is, if you've never seen the film, don't start with the Ultimate Edit. Watch the theatrical cut first, then watch the Ultimate Edit on a second go, because I mean the continuity in the film isn't amazing anyway, but it can be quite jarring to suddenly shift to blurry, completely different colours. It is strange. But I do think, you know, there's a lot of extra fight scenes. That's mainly what you're getting in the Ultimate Edit, more fighting. And they are really well choreographed and there are some clever ideas. It's just a shame that they don't look quite as good. As I said, the soundtrack does differ between the Ultimate and the Standard Edition, although they are thematically very similar. Whilst there are a couple of scenes that take place in the past that have some more traditional Japanese instrumentation, you are generally dealing with sort of dancey hip-hop beats with guitar solos over the top of them for the action sequences. Sort of thing like Jilted Generation Prodigy. That's what it sort of left out to me as. Then you get sort of some sort of moody, droney, slightly sort of Akira Yamaoka-ish bits for atmosphere. You get a lot less of those in the Ultimate Edit. I do think the Ultimate Edit has a better soundtrack because it's more dynamic. It seems to ebb and flow with the action a bit better, but you're not really losing anything. I think it's ever so slightly better, and it has a bit more bass because for some reason they mixed it in 6.1. I guess just, you know, it's that Spinal Tap, these go to 11, our soundtrack goes to 6.1 rather than 5.1, but I couldn't benefit from that. I don't have a sixth speaker. Versus is a heck of a lot of fun, and this version of it is without a doubt the best way to see it. I mean, it is absolutely packed full of extras. There are far more special features on this film than there really should be. It's quite strange how much like behind the scenes stuff they have found, including that there is some behind the scenes stuff of when they went to film the new footage. It is pretty ridiculous how much stuff. And then you've got a book with essays and stuff like that. If you've ever had a question about how they made verses, the answer is going to be in here because there is so much stuff. There's even, I'm pretty sure, yeah, a condensed 20-minute version of the film. I need to watch that because I want to know, surely it's just fighting. But seriously, you should be checking out Versus if you are a Japanese sort of extreme cinema fan, if you like Japanese action movies, if you like martial art, if you like anything in which people hit each other, you need to watch Versus because it's insane and amazing. I mean, it really is. You can tell that everyone making the film had such a good time making it. It sort of seeps out of the film and you just go, kind of wish I'd been there when they made this. It looks like a lot of fun, and it's just fun. It's, you know, there's nothing particularly thought-provoking going on, but if you want some dumb fun, Versus is the perfect film for you. But that is just my opinion. Have you seen Versus? What did you think of it? What's your favourite sort of ridiculously over-the-top Japanese action film with swords in it? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. And I shall see you next time.